Hey, it's Kenny with helicopterground.com. Back with Live Training Tuesday. So today is kind of fun because we have me here as normal. Gary Cleveland is off today. He's not around. 2 months here and he's already taken a week off work. But that's all right because we have, I'm going to go to the camera over here with Chris Hauser and Tannen Austin. Chris Hauser, for those that are just coming in for the first time, never been here before, just give us a quick description about who you are. You're a HOGS certified flight instructor, been flying with me for about 5 years.
I think longer than that. We've been, because I was thinking about it the other day, I was here before HOGS came around, really, so yeah. So could I say I was like the first HOGS member?
Yes, you could say that.
I was looking at your notebook way back, well, it would have been 2009 when I started flying helicopters. So, anyway, yeah, 2008 I got my fixed wing rating. 2009 switched over to helicopters, and from there I've picked up my private commercial CFI and instrument. 3 of those were with Kenny, and I went out to St. Louis to pick up my instrument rating. And now here in the near future, I think we're going to start working on the double I process. So yeah, 2008, so almost 10 years of flying, 9 years in helicopters, somewhere in there.
Awesome, and you've been appearing in our instrument videos as you're getting ready for your double I. So you and Tannen today have been talking about getting together on that. Tannen is one of our HOGS members. Went off street to double I in a year. He's been doing some of our instrument training videos for our new instrument course that is live now to anybody at helicopterground.com. It's open and ready to go for the public. Current HOGS members have a discount. You got to email either me or Gary to get the discount code for that. Now I'm going to go back over and let Tannen introduce himself for those of you that are first time here that don't know Tannen yet.
Oh, yeah, I'm Tannen Austin, and that pretty much sums it up. I started in May 2016 and got all of my private commercial instrument CFI, CFII by July this year. So yeah, a little over a year, but pretty much been a HOGS member since May 20. I mean, right when I started, I got my HOGS membership and been using all of this to get me through school. So yeah, happy to help build the instrument course since, yeah, kind of give back some since I used all of this to get me through all of the ratings that I could.
And that's awesome. We're glad you're here. You've been doing a great job with instrument training.
That's a lot of flying. I was just sitting here thinking from 0 to double I in a year.
200 hours.
In a year.
Yeah.
Which is for, I guess this is live for newer members, so that's not really typical, right?
That's not typical at all. That's amazing. Off the street to double I in 1 year, that is a feat. It has been done, but not many people complete it in that amount of time.
Self, right? You paid for, yeah.
Well, still paying for.
Right. but yeah, a lot of guys, I mean, a lot of students that I work with are guys who, they'll work, they'll save some money, and then they'll start to flying, and then they'll take a week or 2 off because they got to save some more money, and then come back and fly some more. And so that's a lot of flying in 1 year. That's a lot of studying and a lot of...
Yeah, it was, I mean, that was my full-time job, especially getting through my private. It was fly every single day. And then it was like 4 hours of ground. Wake up at 8, 4 hours of ground, go fly 1 to 3 at the airport, and then go to the job to pay rent. And then next day do the same thing.
Do it all over again?
Yep. I slowed down going through instrument because I was actually getting ahead of myself in hours. So I had to slow my flying down some because I was getting to like commercial standard hours. So, but yeah.
Very typical that the flight training exceeds the ground training, which we'll get to that in a minute. We're going to do 15 videos today, tips on general helicopter training and also checkride tips. Before we get started on that, we're going to go over to the Courtney cam. Courtney's over here taking your questions, so let us know where you're from. Even if you are one of those that's logging in every week, that's cool. Let us know where you are at, where you're coming from, or where you're logging in from. And if you're new and we haven't heard from you before, put your name in there. Just give us a brief description where you're at. Courtney's going to field the questions. We'll check in here with her every little bit. We're going to cover a whole bunch of stuff here. I'm going to cover some of these videos, and we're going to roll these videos for fun. I made these videos 5 years ago, and the message is good, but I just want to roll them because it's all a lot of the core tips that are important no matter what you're doing, private, commercial, CFI. There's only one that might be maybe for the brand new person, which is introductory flight, but we'll get to that in a minute. So I'm going to go over to Courtney and see who might be here and who has checked in. And then as we're rolling these videos, go ahead and put your questions in related to the topics that we're talking about, and we'll answer them either in between the videos or more towards the end. If you have something off subject, wait towards the end because we may cover it in one of the upcoming videos. And then whatever questions you have at the end, you got all three of us here to pick our brains today and ask questions. So let's go to Courtney and see who's joined us today.
Jim Hardy says, here from North Texas. And Taz and Mark Daniels says, hi from Vegas. Also, Gary Cleveland says he's tuning in from the way home. So, hello, everyone.
Awesome. So Gary Cleveland's in there, huh? So I guess we have to watch what we're going to say about him. All right, we're going to roll the first video. Put your questions in as we go, and we'll be back. These videos are short. We won't be gone more than a minute or so. So let me try to get this pulled up here. Gary's usually doing this for me, so I'm starting from scratch. All right, here we go with the first one, helicopter introductory flight. This is for those of you that haven't started yet that are thinking, how do I get started? This is how you get started. So you can make fun of me in the video all you want because that's part of why we're here. Hello, this is Kenny with Fort Wayne Helicopters. Have you dreamed of always flying helicopters? Could be a dream along with my dream of wanting to shoot a video by the ocean. Been wanting to do this for quite a while, and now I'm getting my chance to do that. We can help you make your dreams come true. The first question a lot of people ask is, how do I get started? Getting started, the best thing to do is just schedule an intro flight. Find a helicopter somewhere near your area and schedule that introductory flight and go out and get your first helicopter lesson. You can sit and think about it all day long. You can read books, watch these videos, but until you go out and try it, you're not going to know what it's really all about. And the actual flying experience speaks for itself once you go up. So if you're wanting to know where to get started, schedule yourself an introductory flight and go out and give it a try. We're putting on a series of videos to help answer a lot of the questions that people ask about learning to fly helicopters. So get that introductory flight scheduled and keep checking back with us for some more videos and more tips on learning to fly. Thanks.
WayneHelicopters.com. It's been a while. Go ahead.
Yeah, introductory flight or discovery flight. That's exactly how. I guess just about everybody should start it. We did it in Robinson, so Did you do it in Robinson?
Instrums mainly for me.
Okay, so in the Robinson, the SFAR 73 briefing you'll have to do first. It's about a 40-minute ground briefing just about Robinson specific aspects, and then just really how simple things on how a helicopter works, and then short pre-flight, and then actually with the SFAR 73 briefing, it's required if you actually want to manipulate the controls. So, but it does allow you your very first time in a helicopter to go up there and actually fly the helicopter, and that's highly recommended. If you want to get started, just go up for a half an hour and actually get on all three controls and see what it's like. I know we have. We'll go up and first time if they request it, go ahead and just do an auto rotation, just so people realize that helicopters do actually glide, as opposed to, I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions, is you just fall like a rock. But if they request, we won't do it if they look afraid. But yeah.
Yeah, it's about the same. Most of my time is in instrums, and working with the flight school, or if you're doing it on your own, an intro flight, discovery flight it's basically an hour with a half an hour of ground, maybe 15 minutes of a little bit of instruction or just ground stuff, and then about a half an hour flight, and then you have a 15 minutes at the end to kind of debrief or talk about it. But same thing, I usually with a new person who's interested is I'll take them up, let them fly kind of in cruise flight a little bit, just get their hands on the controls, and then I'll bring them back and let them kind of, let them see what hovering's about or trying to hover. Some people think it's amazing how many people start off with like, oh, I've heard it's pretty easy, and then I give them all the controls and you're saving them in about 2 seconds. So, and then I usually try to get an auto in just to show them, everybody knows that airplanes can glide with no engine, but everybody seems to think that if a helicopter loses its engine, it's going to fly or drop right out of the sky, and that's not the case at all. So, but pretty much same thing. I try to get the students' hands on the controls, let them test it out, and then a little bit of a debrief, and that's how you start into this business.
Yeah, I'll add, especially it's fun for the introductory flight just to do things that planes can't do. Mm-hmm. Just fly low, slow, maybe fly. I mean, generally in the introductory flight, you wouldn't do anything close to like confined landings, but we do coming in pirouettes down the runway or down a taxiway, just things that to show the difference between, especially if they're add-on guys, this is what makes helicopters so cool, because we can just sit here and hover and these pirouettes and fly backwards. Just show all the fun things that helicopters can do.
All right, ready for the next video?
Yep.
Go for it. The next video. Hello again, Kenny with 41 Helicopters, and we're taking you through a timeline here of learning to fly. And the next one I want to hit is Helicopter Flying Handbook. I checked online for one today. It was around $17, so it's going to be right around 20 bucks depending on where you get it. Don't let the book overwhelm you. Just start out kind of easy with it. Helicopter controls, helicopter maneuvers. If you dive into it and start really reading the aerodynamics, you can read it and it can scare you away before you even get started. The aerodynamics aren't that hard. Once you start reading it and you get some help from your instructor, you'll find out it's not too bad. So just get the Helicopter Flying Handbook and learn the basics so that when you go for your first couple lessons, you already have a good idea of what the controls do and a little bit about how the helicopter operates. Grab yourself a copy of the Helicopter Flying Handbook, and we'll see you on the next one.
The Helicopter Flying Handbook, that's pretty much everything that you will need for your private, but you'll want to read it along with your PTS, because that will give you all of the information that is required of you during your check ride. So just follow along. You can pretty much go PTS to Helicopter Flying Handbook, and I think in the Flying Handbook it'll actually say, no, it doesn't. First I thought it actually mentioned where in the PTS it's this information is, but that's not not the case. But you want to kind of reference both of those in tandem. So we can just move on to the next video then.
I don't have anything. That's great. You have to have the Helicopter Flying Handbook. You will have to read it. As I quiz students when we fly, I'm always saying, well, the Helicopter Flying Handbook states 3 to 5 foot hover. That's what the examiner, that's the Bible, that's the rule, that's what everybody goes off of. You have to have it, you have to read it, you got to know it.
Hello again, Kenny with 41 Helicopters. Next tip, start thinking about your written test early on in your training. You're doing your dual. One thing that we like to say is try to have your written test done prior to solo. Not many people do it, but the guys that I've trained over the years, the ones that you could get the written done early, like prior to your solo, man, once the solo time gets there, you can get your requirements out of the way, get your dual done, and get to the check ride, which is why we're here. We're talking about getting from day one, getting you to the check ride, and getting your rating. So very important, get a written test prep early on in the training and start studying for that written test. The sooner that you get that written test out of the way, the better off you're going to be, because the written test is always a hassle. There's been many times that we've had guys that they get down to a week before their check ride and they're still trying to get the written test done. So they're working on last minute requirements, paperwork, flying, written test, and I'm telling you, it's a pain in the butt. Get that written done and out of the way. Thanks for stopping by.
We're doing, by the way, don't go to fortwaynehelicopters.com. It might not be there.
It's not there. You can tell these videos are that old because that was way back in the day.
Let's see. I did all of my written prep through ASA on iPad app, and pretty much if I could get, I think it was 3 or 5 practice tests with above 90% in a row, took the test. That's it. I mean, as soon as I could do it, I would take the test and really just get that done as soon as possible, because then you can actually focus on really the questions that your DPE is going to ask you. You want that out of the way. And I did for my instrument, since I knew I was getting my double I as well, I took both tests in the same day. As soon as I was done with my instrument, I had lunch, went back and took my double I test, because they are the exact same test. So if you studied for one, just get them both done. And I scored like 6% higher on my double I because I'd just seen those questions.
Great tip.
Yeah, I wish I would have known about that. But knowledge test studying. I did a little differently. I bought the ASA book that you can buy that's got all the questions in it, and I would sit down and read a chapter a night or whatever, and I would go through that book, I don't know, 3 or 4 times, make sure I saw all the questions, saw all the answers, and then if you just Google FAA knowledge test questions, I mean, there's all types of websites that you can get on that you can do practice exams and all that. I never paid to take practice exams or anything like that, but I just studied that ASA book, took several online exams, and I did the same thing. If I was continuously getting above 90, then I knew I was ready to go take it. And I think the lowest I've ever scored on a test was like an 88. So,
right.
It's one of those things where you can find all this stuff online. You can buy the test prep books, which that's what I do, and I just go through and read it. And then remember, that could be your ground. And then remember, you need to sign off before you go take that. So make sure you get with your instructor, get signed off to go do it. And and definitely don't wait until the last. You don't want to be going today for your knowledge test and then tomorrow for your check ride. You want to get all that out of the way as soon as you're ready. So,
yeah, we're ready for the next one.
Hello, Kenny with Fort Wayne Helicopters again. Another tip would be, choose the aircraft that's right for you. The main helicopters out there being used is the Robinson, the Schweitzer, the Instrum. They've all got good qualities. Every helicopter has pros and cons to it, but they're all helicopters. So essentially, they all fly the same. Some characteristics are a little bit different and numbers are a little bit different, but they're still all helicopters. Don't let one particular school tell you, oh, you got to fly this helicopter for this exact reason. Look at the different helicopters out there and see what's right for you. If you're a really tall individual, you might want to go into the larger aircraft. If you're a small guy and every hour is what's the most important is the cost, then you're probably going to want to be in the Robinson. Schweitzer's kind of in between. They've all got really good characteristics. They're all great helicopters. Do a little research. It might be worth your time to maybe drive a little farther to be in the aircraft that you should be in versus the one that's just closest. Spend a little time researching the different aircraft and pick which aircraft's right for you. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, this is actually really good information, especially I know there were, I think that might actually still exist, some of the schools that allowed, was that bar one, whichever, that allowed the GI Bill, and really the students could pick whatever aircraft they wanted to fly. So a lot of schools are recommending get your flight time in a R66 or A-Star, or the first helicopters these people will learn to fly in, and got all of their training done in it. The downside with that is it's very difficult to get an instructor job if all your time is in a 66 or an A-Star. And then also, it's like there's some schools that will recommend just getting all your flights done in a 44, mainly because the school makes more money off of the 44. But if you are, within weight to do it in a 22, it's cheaper to do it in a 22. Or if the school's trying to get you to do it in 22 and you weigh 220 pounds, do it in a 44. Yeah, pick the aircraft that makes the most sense. I did mine in a 22 because 22s are difficult to fly, and I figured if I could fly it, I'd be able to fly just about any of the other ones. And really, after flying any other helicopter, 22 it's specific. It's difficult to fly in comparison.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how to go with that, because it's kind of, you need to pick what's right for you. However, you also, if you live in Indianapolis, you're probably, there's only probably one or two places you can go to train. If you live in, you got Robinson's in Indianapolis, Fort Wayne has Instrums, you're kind of limited. My suggestion is get as much as you can and whatever you want, really. I mean, it's one of those things where, each aircraft has its ups and downs, its pros and cons. I was fortunate enough the way, you did all your training in Robinsons. I did most of my training in Instrums. The difference between the Instrum and the Robinson is Instrums have a correlator, Robinsons have a governor. Nothing against Tanner here, but it's hard for a Robinson guy who has governor training to go to an Instrum, because
That's true. They have not used to having to.
Yeah, because a correlator, you always got to adjust the throttle and all that. But for me, going from an Instrum to a Robinson was very easy, because I was like, oh, you don't have to do anything with the throttle. You just sit here and let it do its thing. So it's one of those things where I think you're limited to wherever you live. But if you have a choice, and R22s have a weight limit, so that means you may have to bump up to a 44. Instrums are a little bit bigger, but they don't have the governor. So it's one of those things where if you learn in an Instrum, it's probably easy to transition to Robinson. If you train in Robinson, you're definitely going to have 5, 6, 7 hours of dual again in an Instrum to get used to the correlator. So it's a catch-22. And I've got, I've trained in Robinsons, I've trained in Instrums, I've trained in Brantley, I've trained in Hillers, I got a little bit of everything, and they each one have their pros and each one's got their cons. So
yeah, so it's especially if you're live around like southern Florida or Arizona, where you have pretty much your pick. Texas, you have your pick of flight school, and one looks really good, but they're kind of demanding that you fly in this, and you'd rather learn in something else.
Yeah, I think you're kind of limited
somewhere
to wherever.
Else. But I trained in Robinsons because Robinsons were available to me.
Right, exactly.
But I also chose the 22 because it was cheaper, and I could still, it's like me and my instructor still fit fine.
And I chose an Instrum because that's what was available to me.
Yeah.
And I've got some time in a Schweitzer too, but that's, I went to St. Louis to do that. So it's one of those, it's what I think it's kind of where, if you're willing to travel, then yeah, go pick it. If you're not willing to travel and you got to kind of go around wherever you live, then so be it. But if you really want to do it, you'll do it. So
yeah.
Should we answer that now, or?
Yeah. Well, this is, does anyone begin training in a Jet Ranger?
Yeah, in the military.
Yeah.
The
Jet Rangers are expensive to rent. So if you're at a school and you're renting a Jet Ranger, you're looking at over $1,000 an hour to rent that Jet Ranger. So yeah, does anyone do it? The military, and if not that, they can.
I think
it's expensive.
Yeah, I think with a Jet Ranger, it's mainly if you're learning to fly that, it's because you bought that and you're learning in your own aircraft. Right. I don't think anybody really sets out to start in turbine aircraft, except for I know military flight schools are the 206s or whatever they are for the
and I
military.
Think they're moving to the 145s now.
Are they?
So,
but yeah, turbines are. I don't think you're gonna get anything. I have paid for turbine training in the past, and it's been anywhere from $1,100 or $1,200 to $2,000, depending on what you want to rent. So
yeah, I mean, if you have the money and you find a school that's willing to let you train all of your training in a 206, more power to you. But yeah, I would say that's the vast minority. So I think we're ready for the next one.
Yep.
All right.
Hello, it's Kenny with Fort Wayne Helicopters. Another helicopter training tip along your timeline of getting started with learning to fly helicopters. When you have a scheduled flight, even if the weather's bad, show up and do ground with your instructor. Students are horrible about, oh, I'm not going today because the weather's bad. There's so much ground to do. The ground is 75% of it, 25% is the flying. And time again, guys will cancel because the weather's bad. Don't cancel. Go in, sit down with your instructor, do some ground school. It's a common issue that happens over and over again. So if you want to save time, save money, get through the rating in a decent amount of time, just because the weather's bad, don't cancel your flight. Go in and do ground school. So thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Whatever. What video was about if bad weather on the day of your flight and you're training, come on out anyway. There's always time to do ground. You can always do extra ground. Yes, the flying is fun, but the ground has to be done. And when you go take your practical test, if you don't pass the ground, you don't fly anyway. So if the weather is bad on the day that you are scheduled to train, come to the airport anyway, do an hour or two of ground, and who knows, maybe the weather's improved enough to get a helicopter out and go flying. But yeah.
Yeah, I would say if you planned on going to the airport that day, just go to the airport that day. And especially if you're at a school with multiple instructors, just and your instructor for some reason, let's say they're sick and that's why it got canceled, show up anyway, talk to another pilot, talk to them, just show up, because worst case scenario, you'll do ground, and you need it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, just you planned on showing up, just show up. I think that's
next video.
Yeah, good.
Hello, Kenny with Fort Wayne Helicopters. Another helicopter training tip along your timeline of getting from off the street to rated helicopter pilot. Another important thing in the beginning is make sure that you jive with your instructor, somebody that you want to fly with and that you get along. If there's some type of a personal issue, or you just maybe plain don't like the guy, or you don't like the way he teaches, find yourself another instructor. You're spending a ton of money and a lot of time and effort to get from day one to rated helicopter pilot. Don't be afraid to ask for another instructor if you're at a bigger school, or even change schools if you have to, if you're going somewhere small. And if you're having personal issues or personal conflicts with the guy you're flying with, it's going to drag out the training and it's going to cost you a lot more money, and in the long run, it's not going to be a good thing. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you tomorrow on the next one.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, this is good. Even small, I mean, generally it's like my flight school was not a big flight school, but there was still, it's like I had my instructor and I got, lucky I had a really good instructor. But the owner of the school, he's an instructor. We had 2 part-time instructors that if mine didn't work out, the owner would have found somebody to instruct me. Or if you're at a bigger school, then you got almost your pick. There's generally 15, 20 instructors roaming around that, you're paying for these lessons. If you don't feel like you are getting your money out of these lessons, you need to go somewhere where you will. It's your money, it's your time. If you feel like it's being wasted or not utilized correctly, go somewhere where it will be.
Yeah, it's always going to be, you're always going to have a case every once in a while, whatever, where the student and the instructor isn't jiving, or maybe you've been working with the student for a while and he's just not getting, maybe you're not saying it correctly or saying it where the student's understanding it, but best advice if you don't think it's going to work out, you're right. You're paying for it, so go if you can. You might want to find another instructor, or maybe when I fly with a student, I'm kind of an independent. I call myself an independent contractor because I don't really belong to a school or anybody.
Helicopter gigolo.
Yeah, there you go. That sounds good. I've flown with guys who have bought their own aircraft and then they hire me to teach them. I've worked with Kenny with students with his. I've worked with students over in Fort Wayne. I've gone a little bit of everywhere. But anyway, I always try to get my students to fly with another instructor sometime during their training anyway. Just, it helps me out to see where they're sitting, or, actually I just had an instructor call me the other day and say, hey, my student's just not getting this particular thing. Can you come over and see if you can, maybe teach it a little differently, or, kind of instruct a little differently, see if he can pick it up. So I think all the instructors try to work together to, because we're here to get you your rating. We're not here to take your money. So, we want you to pass and do well. But in the end, it is for you. If you don't like the instructor, or you don't like the way he operates, or maybe you just saw some things that he was doing unsafe, then it's on you to either tell them that, or maybe you need to find another instructor, and it might have to like a small school, and I call Kenny's place a school, but there's only 2 of us here, 3 of us here that he can call. I mean, he can call 2 or 3 of us now, but like I said, I'm an independent guy somewhat, and I know like Fort Wayne at Sweet Aviation, they only have 1 full-time instructor, so if he's not getting it with you, then they're probably going to call me. And so unless you go to a huge school where they have 20 instructors, you might be a little limited, so you might have to go and travel. You might have to, I've driven over 5 hours before to go fly a helicopter, and so it may be something you have to do. So
yeah, now this is kind of related. It's like actually my school, I actually went out to Oregon for a week just because they had a good simulator for instrument training. So it's like if your school, I got 20 hours in instrument or simulated instrument training that for my rating, where my school didn't offer it. And it's like I saved myself some money. That's not really related to if you're not getting along with your instructor, but that was kind of it's a small school. They didn't have the funding to have that type of simulator. So yeah, I traveled. It's like sometimes you might just have to get away from home to get that one rating and move on. So yeah, I think that covered it.
I was gonna say, I think we did. Yeah, right. We do.
Before in helicopters, and I want to give you a tip on learning plateau. It's something that you're probably going to hear about when you get started with your training. Know that almost everybody ends up hitting a learning plateau. You don't want to get discouraged if you're flying a lot, maybe you're studying really hard, and you have a couple lessons where things don't start going so good and you feel like you're not making progress. A lot of guys will keep pushing on, and you kind of end up wasting your time and wasting your money. When you hit that learning plateau, a lot of times it's a good idea to just take a break, take a few days off, even take a week or 2 sometimes, and maybe you won't be able to handle it. Flying helicopters is addicting. Maybe you can't go 2 weeks without flying, but a lot of times taking a break, when you come back, you will fly better than you did the whole entire time you'd been training. So know that you're going to have a learning plateau that's going to come up. Kind of plan for it or be ready for it, and just know when it happens, don't let it freak you out. Don't get too discouraged. Just say, hey, I guess I've hit my learning plateau. Take a few days off, take a week off, go relax a little bit, go hang out by the ocean, chill a little bit, and then go back and hit it again. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you on the next one.
All right.
You're on.
Yeah, okay. To my knowledge, everybody's going to run into a learning plateau somewhere, and especially the length of the training and the intensity of the training. The one that I really remember for me is after I got really pretty decent at a normal approach, then we started learning steep approaches. I got really good at those, and then my normal approaches just went away. I couldn't do them anymore. So Jeff, my instructor, is like, then we started just practicing something completely. We did start doing like slopes or something, just something completely different. And then in 2 days, kind of just came back. So it was there. Then I just somehow lost the touch, and then it came back. And it was kind of the same thing after I did all of my instrument training, and then just going back into VFR, kind of just normal approaches and everything after staring at instruments for months. Just kind of, had to just do something else briefly just to get past the plateau. And then really, and I found that when you plateau and then it comes back, it's there pretty good after that. But yeah,
sometimes you gotta take a break.
Yeah, you just gotta do something else to get your mind somewhere
especially when you're
else.
learning a new skill, such as flying a helicopter. I remember when I was doing my private rating, and I was going consistently 2 to 3 times a week. And I was doing that for like a month straight, and then all of a sudden my instructor was like, "Well, I'm going on vacation." I'm like, "No, you can't. You can't do that. I'm going to lose this." And I'm not sure that I hit a plateau, but I was all worried about if I didn't keep doing what I was doing, that I was going to lose it.
Right.
And he was gone for a week, and then we picked it up again when I got back, and it was actually, I flew better because I had a break. I didn't fly for a whole week. It was, my mind was refreshed. I had slept and did a little bit of ground studying. But that plateau is always going to be there. It's normal. Taking a break is normal, and for the short term, it's just like when you first start out, the private training is, I break it up into two aspects. One is to get you to hover, and the next one is to get your work on get ready for the practical test. Well, when you're first learning to hover, it gets tiring. So we would hover for, we tried to hover for 10 minutes, and then we'll go off and do something completely different, go fly the pattern, go fly cruise flight, go do whatever, and then we'll come back, because it's just, the body gets overwhelmed learning a new skill like that if you just keep hammering it out, and especially on a hot day or whatever. But learning plateau is normal. It's you might be doing real well, and all of a sudden for a week or two, it doesn't seem like you're improving, but you are. You just take a break and start again.
I'm going to jump in. Just for a second, because I just got a text on the member support line because Gary's not here to answer it. And so, member, where in the site is the live thing today? It's in private, it's in commercial, it's in CFI. It's the first category in all 3 memberships. If you're not getting our emails, you need to sign up for our email list so you get notifications of these things, because we've been putting this out and people keep asking, well, where is it? It's in the private, it's in the commercial, it's in the CFI. It is the first video under the first category. And when you go there, there's a little 7 or 8 second bumper, Live Training Tuesday. Just scroll down the page just a little ways. It's there. Nobody can find it. But I put on the emails. It's category 1, video 1, beginning of the training. Yeah. We're harping on Gary hard today. He knows we love him.
Gary who?
And we're rolling my videos to make fun of these in case you are coming in later. We're rolling my little videos from 5 years ago, and then I'm letting these 2 gentlemen jump in and give you their take on it. So laugh all you want, make comments if you want. My daughter's over here snickering at me because they are pretty funny. So I think since we took a little break, should we check in if any other comments or anybody said hi from anywhere? Blah blah blah. Anything? Should we go to? Let me go to the Courtney cam.
Wow. Someone is wondering if there's any movies that would help someone get over a fear of talking on the radio.
I don't know about movies, but I tell you what, when I started my instrument training, I bought the instrument. What was it called? I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's instrument simulator communications or something, and it's a disc you can buy, from like Sporties or something like that, and they send you to it, and you actually, you load it onto your computer, and then what they do is they take you all through getting a clearance, talking to a tower, asking for, getting, a flight plan while in the air. It does the whole aspect for you. But what's cool about it is the purpose why I bought it is because I wanted to make sure I knew the right phraseology and the terms. And what they do is, you go through your little study segment of it, and then you actually say out loud. They have 3 choices there. You pick the one that you think is correct, and then you actually push the button, like the microphone button on your computer, and then you say out loud what you're supposed to say, and that way it gets you talking out loud and saying it. And there's a script there you read from, but it won't go on unless it hears your voice. So you actually have to say it out loud and practice that. So, that's something I bought when I was trying going for my instrument. I mean, movies, I don't know if there's any, I don't know, movies is the right word, but, I think the fear, I mean, even with me, even sometimes when I call up Tower or whomever, I have that little, it's not fear, but that little, am I going to sound like a fool on the radio or something like that? But, you just do it. But it's like, anytime I fly, I always hear a mistake by someone. I mean, the jetliner pilots, corporate pilots, I always hear, a mistake. So, whether you have 20 hours on the radio or if you have 5,000 hours, it happens. And the best thing is, you're probably never going to meet that person that you're talking to on the radio anyway. So
We just did this in Live Training Tuesday, either last week or the week before. I did a half an hour on how to get comfortable with the radio and tips and tricks. So if you're not a member yet, you should become a member. I shouldn't point on the camera. Join Ground School. If you're not a member, if you are a member, it's inside Ground School. We just talked about, radio tips. So that's something we just did because people have been asking for it.
I think that was called I can see the icon. It's like Com1 Simulator or something like that. But if you Google it or go on, Sporties or something like that, you can find it on there.
Yeah.
So
I know what I did is again, not sure about movies, but while I was just going through my ground instrument at home, I would just have my computer go to just atc.net.
That's about right.
And you can just listen to, I would bring up Indianapolis International, and they're different, either their approach control, their departure, or their tower itself, and just listen to them. Just saying stuff.
Yeah.
And then I'd have my instructor, because I operate out of an uncontrolled airport, so the first time I had to talk to towers, it's a little intimidating. So I would just have him flying around the uncontrolled airport, just pretend to be tower, and just talk while we were just doing patterns or coming into land. He would pretend to be tower, and I would respond that way. But if you can find this simulator, that sounds good. I probably would have picked that up if I knew it existed.
Yeah, it's Com1 Simulator or something like that, simulation, and it's
Someone
just
commented and said com1.com.
Oh,
there you
okay.
go. But it's kind of neat because, like I said, it, and I actually bought a headset. They suggest buying a headset you can put on and plug in your computer, and then you just talk in the headset. But that helped me out a lot because not only does it get you to talk out loud, but it also gives you the phraseology and what you're supposed to say when, and it goes through the whole thing, getting clearance, it goes through from A to Z on everything about what you need to do.
Too. I mean, that's because especially if you're operating an uncontrolled airport, there's you never have to call for clearance.
Yeah, and it covers that, and it covers if you're landing or departing from Class C or Delta or whatever, and so.
Ready for the next video?
Yep.
Hello, Kenny with Fort Wayne Helicopters. Next training tip, which I think is the biggest of all, is your self-study and your dual time with your instructor. Depends on where you're flying. A lot of places give you lots of good ground. A lot of places, not so much. The thing that I've seen over the years is everybody's almost always lacking on the ground school. People don't usually fail from the flying portion. They usually fail the oral. Everybody wants to fly. Nobody wants to do ground. That's just the way it is. The flying is the fun part. The study is not. You got to force yourself to study, study, study. Duel with your instructor, time at home. Again, I believe 75% of it is the ground school, 25% is the fly-in. So you have to commit yourself to making study priority one. And you want to study a lot in the beginning because it makes it a lot smoother, process of getting your license, if you start early, hit the books hard, get the training down, get the ground training in the beginning of the flying, and then continue to keep brushing it up as you go, so that when you go for your practical test, you can spout these answers off to the examiner, boom, boom, boom. The ground is truly the biggest part. So you have got to commit yourself to study. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you on the next one.
This is standby, and this
Yeah.
is, so now we're live, right?
Yes.
Catch you on the next one.
Ground school. And again, as I suggested for, what was that? PTS. The PTS will tell you exactly what you need to know.
That is the test. That's what I tell students. PTS is the test.
Yeah, if you can, when it says, you need to know, weather and weather services right here, you need to know weather and weather services. You need to know airspace. You need to,
go through that PTS.
It's giving you the exact questions.
When I started off, I went through that PTS and I, opened it up and I wrote down, okay, it says under, medical, it says what's hypoxia. So I wrote down hypoxia and I wrote what it was. And I did that for each one, and I just studied that because the PTS is your test.
Yeah.
That is your test.
Yeah, the DPs cannot ask you a question that is not in the PTS.
Mm-hmm.
So they can, but you can't fail on that question. So PTS is giving you all of the questions that can be asked. Just follow along with it and follow along with the Hogs videos and your helicopter flying manual handbook. You do have to read and watch the videos and pay attention and take notes.
And that's what I tell students also, is that everybody loves the flying, and that's the best part about it. And I think sometimes you can tell that when you fly with it, I don't know if you have yet, but I can tell sometimes with a student or a potential student that comes in and takes a flight, he just wants to do, or she just wants to do the flying. They don't understand that there's a whole lot of homework, I guess, if you want to say that, to this. Everybody sees the flying and everybody wants to be a pilot, but you don't really see, if I knew how many hours I've sat at home and read and looked at videos and did this and did that to what my actual flying hours are, it'd be...
Eclipses it. Easy.
Yeah.
Easy.
So, and that's what we like as instructors too, is once a person starts their training, I don't want to spoon feed it to you. I would like for you to show up and know some things,
Right.
and then I'll tell you for the next lesson, hey, go home and look how we're going to do slope landings next week. So why don't you read about slope landings? And that way when you come in, you kind of understand this and that. But you always have those guys who, they want it all spoon fed, or they don't think they want the ground part, and it will cost you more in the long run, and it will take you longer to get your rating. If you do a lot at home and you come prepared, you will make it through faster with less money.
Yeah, I can't imagine how expensive all flight training would be if I just relied solely on my instructor to teach me all of my ground that I needed. That's
never make it. It would be almost
Yeah.
We can't. We're here to help you and to teach you, but we can't teach you everything.
Right.
It's kind of. You've got to.
Yeah, kind of, especially in small schools, the instructor's job is to make sure what you're learning is what you're supposed to be learning, and then help you through something that you're struggling with. But we're not here to read the book to you. This is
I can, but it's going to cost you.
Yeah,
I can, but if there's something you can do at home where I'm not charging you to do, then I would do that. But
that's why these videos exist and the book exists. That's it's here to save you money. Get the training and save you money.
Sales pitch, helicopterground.com. What?
All right, there's the next video.
Yeah.
Hello, Kenny with 4-Wing Helicopters. I want to talk about aircraft checklist. Checklist. You have to use the checklist. Whether you're just starting out or you're working on an advanced rating, You have to use the checklist for your pre-flight, your all different phases of flight. You want to be using the checklist. It's something that you're going to have to do no matter what, whether you're taking a check ride with a designated examiner, FAA examiner, if you become a career pilot and later you're flying with a check airman for a company. Every single one of those guys is going to expect you to use the checklist. And the one thing that I can tell you over the years of training is, if you don't use the checklist and then you try to use it when you go to take your test, the examiner's going to catch it. He's going to know that you haven't been using it because he's going to know you don't have a good flow as you're going through it. So it's very important to use the checklist. It's also even more important because if you don't use the checklist, you're going to forget something. A lot of us over the years think we get good enough that I don't need the checklist. I've done this so many times, I know how to do this. And every single time that you try to sneak one time without using the checklist, you forget something during that startup or your pre-flight or whatever the case is, and then later you're going to end up paying for it. So you have to use the checklist. Wherever you're flying, no matter who you're flying with, if they're not making you use the checklist, you better start using it on your own. So all the way through your training, start to finish, your entire career, you got to use the checklist. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, use your checklists.
Next video.
Yeah, I had a really good DP for all of my check rides, and if I went to any one of them and did not use, especially the checklist for my pre-flight, he would have failed me before I got in the helicopter. You have to use your checklists and use them for everything, and always use them.
That's why they're there.
Yeah, and you'll find that because there's some things that when you stop using them, there might be a thing that you just routinely neglect to do because it hasn't been reminded of you, and then something simple can go wrong that you didn't do because you didn't read your checklist. But no, they exist and they're required in the helicopter. So
yeah, I mean the checklists are there for a reason. It's important that you use. I mean I'm an aircraft owner, and you know I still pull out my checklist and run through it, even though it's my airplane, it's my aircraft. I still run through it every time. You know, just because you just never know, you might be in a hurry that day and you'll just not use it and you'll skip something. Whatever. I mean, it's very simple. You know, I was flying with a guy the other day, and he was using the checklist, but sometimes they get in a hurry. And we went to start. It was an R-22. We went to start the aircraft, and it wouldn't start. And I knew exactly what was wrong, but he didn't. And he's like, "Man, what the hell?" You know. Well, can I say that? Can I say that? Whatever. We'll bleep that later.
we'll bleep it from the live video.
So you know, he was going through it and it wouldn't start. And I'm like, you know, go through your checklist. Blah blah blah. Forgot to check the rotor brake. I mean, if anybody doesn't know, the R-22 won't start if the rotor brake's engaged. And it was something as simple as that. You know, here he's thinking, well, do we have a dead battery? You know, what's going on? What's wrong? Simple as just a simple thing like that, you know. So checklists are there to be used, and trust me, on when you take your practical test, your check ride, examiners will want you to use it, and they will be watching. I know where I usually send people when the oral is over, the DP will say, "Hey, go out there and you know, pre-flight the aircraft. I'm gonna go to the bathroom and get a cup of coffee. I'll be out there in a minute." Yeah, he's not really doing that. He's standing there at the window watching you pre-flight the aircraft, making sure you have the checklist out. So they're always watching. So just use your checklist, and that way you'll get every item on there and you'll be good to go.
Yeah, and I know for all of my check rides, it was still even like the pre-flight checklist. I just, you know, make sure that I was audibly saying every step. So the DP knew that I was, all right, circuit breakers, everything, just making sure that he knew that I was going through it. But yeah, they're there, and if you don't use them, you probably won't pass that aspect of your check ride. Yep.
So we want to do that, the second one, or we question?
Up to you guys. If you want to answer questions now, or move on.
I didn't know, because he's starting to move down.
Okay, well, the second one is asking about how to practice using the plotter in E6B. I believe we have videos of pretty much showing you how to use both of these in the private section.
And I'll tell you what, to add to that, you can find anything on the internet. If you go to YouTube and you type in how to use an E6B, I guarantee you can find about 10 different videos showing you exactly how to do it. And, you know, I use an electronic E6B. So when I trained my students, we're using the old-fashioned, one, and sometimes I forget how to do it. So I tell you what, just, a month ago, I was getting a student ready for his, and I'm like, so yeah, we sat there together and watched a YouTube video and just to make sure that I was clear on how to use it. And he had, once I saw it, it came back. But, it's out there. YouTube has it. Helicopter Ground's got it. I mean, there's another guy out there. He's a big M0A. He does it. I mean, they're out there. Well, he's airplane guy. He's not really competition. But yeah, it's out there. And you can mess with it at home, and really, if you read on there too, it really does cover everything. I mean, how to work it. If you
that's what I was gonna.
Yeah, it says right on the actual instrument itself.
Yeah, there's the instructions on how to get your windage and everything. Yep. Just go follow these steps. And if you get confused on things like is this my distance or is this my fuel, it'll also tell you, fuel is outer, if that's correct.
Yep.
But you can find, it's like, Kenny has a good video. But there's.
And I think they actually have like practice examples in the book.
Yeah, and the book that comes with the E6B,
they will give you problems to work. But yeah, you can find. You can find it all on the internet, and then your instructor, when you train, he can help you out too. But you're asking about how to practice at home. I just get on YouTube and look. I get on the helicopter ground, look at that. So
I will double check and make sure that it's still in there. But I have more than one video where I'm talking about the whole trick to the E6B is, as these guys already said, it's right on the front. Everything on the front you can work from those equations. Fuel, time, speed, distance, it's all right there. All you got to know is go down there and look at that, and it tells you how to work those. Almost any of the problems you're going to need, the equations are there. And then the wind on the back, you just go through it. You go right down the step, 1, 2, 3, follow step by step what it says right there in E6B, and it's right there on there. Everybody gets intimidated by it, but it's not a big deal. It's only a big deal if you make it a big deal. I'm gonna go back to you guys while I get the
next video.
What's the question about that? Did we answer that?
Prepping for your oral, PTS. It's if you're looking for the best way to prep for your oral, it's
helicopterground.com.
Helicopterground.com along with your PTS, because again, that's every question that's going to be asked of you. So if you look at a category, it's like, I understand that, then you're probably going to be good for your oral. If you look at something that's like, I don't remember that, go find it. But yeah, PTS.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add is, there's so much stuff out there that you can, I've downloaded a couple apps on my iPad that's, it says oral exam prep or something like that, ASA oral exam prep. I've also downloaded, I think it's called checkride prep to my iPad, and that covers, questions and stuff like that. So, the oral is, but yeah, the PTS, whatever's in there, he can ask. So again, like my example earlier, hypoxia, that's right in there, what it is, how do you get it, et cetera, carbon monoxide poisoning. If you just go through that PTS and you're able to answer every question that's in there you go. And I bet, examiners always like to provide knowledge and also kind of teach a little bit. They don't want to teach the whole thing, but they want you to know, but they will always expand on topics, that's not part of the test, but they also like to give tidbits and help you out. So I have no idea what that next one is. The one above.
Yeah, I don't. Army pilot. So I had a tutor perspective. Army pilot, folks. Yeah. That's good. I we're just mumbling.
Helicopters. I want to talk about the 1 hour flight lesson. This is a huge training tip because the human brain can only handle about an hour of any new skill. And when you're learning a new complicated skill like learning to fly helicopters or doing helicopter ground school, keep it at 1 hour, take a break. Now I'm not talking about later if you're doing a long cross country or doing checkride preparation once you've got a little more time under your belt. But in the beginning when you're training, your flights really ought to be at an hour. If it's any more than that, you're kind of wasting your time and money. Before I was a helicopter instructor, I was a police officer and a firearms instructor, and I went through an instructor development course was the first thing. And back then they said, anytime you have somebody in a classroom or you have them out in the field, after an hour, give that person a break. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, get up, leave the classroom, go get something to drink, grab something to snack on. Same thing in the helicopter. In the beginning, you need a break after an hour. The first 20 minutes you're kind of getting warmed up, the second 20 minutes you're doing really good, and that third 20 minutes of that hour, you start to drop off a little bit on your learning curve starts to drop off. And after an hour, it just goes downhill. I've done this video before, but it's been a while, and it's that important of a message that I wanted to put it out there again. Keep your flight training to 1 hour. If you're going to a flight school and a guy's flying you 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, and this is your third, fourth, or fifth lesson, they're stealing your money. In the beginning, keep your flight training at an hour. And if somebody's trying to fly you more than that, tell them you want to quit. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you on the next one.
We on?
Yeah. 1 hour flights.
I don't even really know how to. Yes, ever since I've been with Kenny, he has teached and preached and swore by 1 hour training sessions for beginners, you know, as you move on, commercial, whatever. But if you're a new person, you got 5-6 hours in, and your instructor is making you or letting you fly a 1.4, a 1.5, and then you come back the next day and you're doing another 1.4, 1.5. Other than doing cross country, he's wasting your money. No offense. We keep here at helicopterground.com. We keep our students to an hour, period. Maybe a 1.1, whatever. When you're learning a new skill, how to hover, pattern work, steep approaches, whatever, you get tired. And there's no point about 40 minutes, 45, 50 minutes into it, especially on if it's a 90-degree day and you're out there in the sun, you're going to get tired. You're a sweaty mess, you're tired. There's no point in going on for another half an hour. If you're flying, I don't want to say sloppy, but by 50 minutes into it, if you're tired, you're not going to get any better. So what's the point of flying another half an hour? So yes, here I tell students this. Kenny taught me, so I know he tells them. Hour max, maybe 1.1. That's when you're training. Now, if you're doing a cross country, then yeah, maybe you're going to have some longer times in there. But you know, if you're going out there in lesson number 4, you're doing an hour and a half, you're wasting your money.
I don't have anything to add. That's something that's, yeah, I mean, it's again, just, it's time that's wasted. You're not really getting anything out of it, really going over an hour. So
if I fly with a guy all day, then we will, we'll do our hour of ground, and then we'll go out and maybe fly 50, 55 an hour, and then we'll take a break, we'll go do lunch, we'll come back, we'll do some more ground, and then we'll fly another an hour or whatever. But I don't have a problem flying all day as long as there's breaks in there. But if you just show up and your instructor all in one time, you guys go out and fly an hour and a half and 1.7, you're wasting your money.
Yeah, it's
period.
On to the next video.
Next one. Roll the next one.
Getting with 4-1 helicopters. And I have another helicopter training tip that I think is absolutely crucial, no matter what you're flying, wherever in the world. Hover pre-takeoff checks. There's a lot of guys out there and a lot of schools teaching hover pre-takeoff checks before every takeoff, and that's a great thing. There are some guys that aren't teaching that, and that's not necessarily the best option for your helicopter training. You want to do the hover pre-takeoff checks because you're giving that engine a chance to spit, sputter, miss, quit running, start acting up. You're given a chance for temperatures and pressures to maybe go out of the limitation. You're checking to see how much power you're using for the day so that you know how much available power you have, what you're pulling in a hover. There's a lot of reasons to be doing a hover pre-takeoff check. It's keeping you safe. It's making sure you got everything set where you should and making sure that the aircraft's ready to go. One little thing that you miss could be total disaster by not doing a hover pre-takeoff check. So, hover pre-takeoff checks. If you're not doing them, start doing them. You need to do them every single time prior to takeoff. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, so here we are. Right on. We back. What are we talking about again?
Pre-hover takeoff.
Oh, pre-hover.
Yeah.
Or no, that
Go ahead.
one was...
That's what you just told me.
Yeah.
Pre-hover takeoff checklist.
Hover check.
Yes.
Right. There's no more drinking going on today.
Yes. These only make sense if you can find out something's wrong 3 feet above the ground versus 500 feet above the ground. Do that. If you're not doing them, start. If your instructor's not having you do them anyway. Hovering is when you want to.
If you can't hover, you can't fly.
Yeah.
That's how I teach.
Yeah.
Pre-hover or pre-takeoff checklist. Especially like I was just working with a student. He just passed a couple weeks ago. First thing we did, we picked up the helicopter, and first thing we did, we hovered it out to a clearing, and we did a left pedal turn. Why do we do a left pedal turn? To make sure we have the power to do it. If you can't do a left pedal turn in a hover, then you probably shouldn't be flying. That's just how it is. We don't do running takeoffs on the ground. I mean, if you're too heavy to hover, you shouldn't be flying. If you can't do a left pedal, you shouldn't be flying. And then along with that, I don't know if this is kind of part of the video, but when you hover out and you're about ready to take off, pre-takeoff checklist. It's not an actual, it may be an actual checklist, or it may just be you going through the motions and saying it out loud. You know, with the R22, it was warning mark. Well, we did warning, caution lights are off, gauges were in the green, we got plenty of fuel. Carpet off or on, whichever, and then radio call, and then off you go. But that's something that I stress to him every time you take off. And then the same thing, pre-landing checklist. You have to say it out loud so your examiner knows that you're doing it. And as we got closer and closer, sometimes he would forget. And as I remember one time we came in and it was a nice approach and everything happened good. But once we came in, I said, "You just failed your check ride." "What?" I said, "You forgot your pre-landing checklist, and then because of that, you forgot to pull carb heat."
Yeah.
And there you go. So, has to be done. Yeah, your instructor has to be teaching it, and it's just basic knowledge. It's got to be taking place.
And I'd add this to just the instrument guys, since we have that course up and running. Your pre-hover checklist will also include a donkey dance, which is making sure pretty much you just touch your pedals and run through your cyclic to make sure that all of your instrument gauges are responding the way they're supposed to. It's part of your pre-takeoff checklist is the donkey dance. And your DPE is going to want to see it. And really, your instructors will, they can see out the window if you did it. Your helicopter looks goofy just sitting there dancing around briefly, but it's required. So, yeah, and again, it's like, if you can't hover, you can't fly.
That's the bottom line. And you got to know that you just can't pick it. Everything starts and ends in a hover. That's what I was taught. And you do see the movies where people just pick it up and take off, or people just come straight in and land. For me, I've always been taught everything starts and ends in a hover. So That's a question real quick. Just get that out.
The Army.
The question is, for those that know, are Army pilot folks allowed to tutor prospective WFT? I'm assuming that's Warrant Officer Flight Training students. Assuming, of course, there are folks that would want to. I'm not quite sure what that means. I don't know if you're just talking about, doing some ground with some guys that are going to go into flight school or whatever. I mean, if you're an Army pilot already, you can obviously pass on your experience and your knowledge to people. And does it count for anything if you're not an instructor? I doubt it. But I'm not all familiar with the Army world. My dad was an Army pilot, but he's been out for probably 15 years now. So I'm not really sure about that one. You feel free to pass on your experience and your knowledge. Will technically count.
I do have one thing to add. I just talked to a military instructor, guy that called me up and invited me down to Sun and Fun, and he said he has people coming in the military that used hogs before they showed up, and he said, Kenny, I got to tell you, these kids are coming in, and he goes, it's wonderful because they're coming in with knowledge, and he goes, and I'm just repeating the story because I was thrilled when this guy told me. He said, Kenny, I'm telling you, I've been watching you all this time. I am a military instructor, and these kids are using your training before they get to flight school, and they're ahead of the game, and they're ahead of everybody else. And I'm like, yeah. And just since then, I've had several email me and say, hey, can I use your stuff before going in the military? And I'm like, well, they're doing it. And, we hear that the military, a lot of their stuff is like, they haven't updated a lot of their stuff. It's like pretty old. And so I just had to throw that in there on my own plug, but that's going on. And I heard that directly from a military instructor.
It goes right back to people, students wanting to be ahead of the game and wanting to learn, being prepared to show up for class. That's what it's all about,
Yep.
Next one. Yep.
Hello, Kenny with Fort Wayne Helicopters. I want to talk about clearing turns. Now, clearing turns is one that a lot of people don't want to do every time because they think it's too redundant and they get tired of doing it and they think, there's nobody around us. Well, there's a fact that I've had several times where I've had not only a tractor come up beside me underneath the rotor system, I've had cars go past, fuel trucks. When you think nobody's around, these vehicles come out of the blue, and so do the obstacles. There's EMS pilots out there that have thousands of hours, and they make a simple mistake and don't clear their tail, and they stick their tails into poles and wires and hangers and all kinds of stuff. So you have to clear the tail every single time you go to turn the aircraft. Make sure your tail is clear. Look out your side, make sure you're clear. If you're flying with somebody else, an instructor or passenger, before you turn their direction or the tail in their direction, make sure they look out and clear the tail for you. The clearing tails, the clearing turns are a very, very, very important part of safe helicopter flying. And these safety things we teach you, they're not just for you to get through the check ride and then throw them out the window and never fly with them again. These are lifelong basic things that we're teaching you to keep you out of trouble. So do the clearing turns and do them every single time you go to move the aircraft, clear that tail and make sure it's clear. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you on the next one.
Clear.
Whatever. It's hot in here, man. I'm sweating. Clearing turns, right? That's what the video was?
Yeah.
I stress it, which I got it from Kenny. Of course, you just saw his video. My students will clear that tail anytime that we're moving the helicopter. I don't care if we're 3 feet off the ground or if we're in the pattern. And when I do that, I also make my students do 90-degree turns. I don't do any of this follow the yellow line as we taxi out, stuff like that. I do 90-degree turns, and before that tail is turned, we clear the left and right of the tail. I still do. I do it all the time, even when I'm flying with other guys, getting experience in other helicopters. I'll say, hey, tail clear to the right. Yep, it's clear. Okay, tail's coming your way. Or, hey, is it clear on your side? Yep. Okay, I'm sliding to the right. Whatever. I'm always announcing what I'm doing with the tail. So the training has come with me even into my professional flying. But yeah, students will clear their tail, before, and if they don't do it, if they don't say it out loud, I will mention it to them. You didn't clear your tail. Well, I looked. No, you didn't. You didn't tell me that you looked. So that's just how I am. I think being more verbal during your exam, the instructor or the DPE likes that because he knows that it's being done if you're saying it out loud. So, and like I said, the same when you're up in pattern, we're clear left, clear right, and that's just out there looking for other traffic before we make our turns. So yeah, and if I do it on all my students, I still do it when I'm by myself, and I even do it when I'm out flying professionally with other pilots. So
yeah, it's like, let's see, my DP actually had me, pretty much told me, it's like, yeah, we're gonna handle this where if you wanted to turn, if I was gonna turn right, I was just gonna ask him tail left and telling him look out the window, make sure that so he wanted me to verbalize that in every turn. And I imagine that if I didn't do that, I don't know how many graces he would have given me, but he was asking that of me. My instructor started early on. Same thing. It's like, yeah, again, no instructor wants to be the instructor that wrecked a helicopter because you turn it into a lamppost. So yeah, this is just, it's a simple thing to do. My instructor had me watch a number of videos of people that did do clearing turns and running into a hangar, or you can find videos of people that don't do clearing turns, and the hundreds of thousands or more dollars that you just cost. So
it's just how it is. Sometimes it's pretty obvious. Maybe if you're out in the middle of the runway and you want to make a pedal turn or whatever, but still, it has to be verbalized, and you gotta, it's just good practice. It's good habits. Especially in these smaller airports, like here we are in Plymouth, or even where I'm from at the Mishawaka Pilots Club, cars have access to coming in onto the taxiways. You can't, if we're sitting there on a run up, and you say clear left and right, I've done, how many times has it happened where you happen to look back and like, oh crap, there's a car that just pulled up behind us. Well, it wasn't there 5 seconds ago when I, started the engine. So, you just have to be aware of your surroundings, and it's got to happen. You have to say it, and I make my students say it out loud.
Yeah, say it out loud and get in the habit. Cause I've done a number of festivals and tours where there's families, and the only thing keeping them away from the helicopter is maybe one person trying to maintain this line. So yeah, the more you actually verbalize it audibly, the more it just becomes part of your flying. So every turn, just get used to just saying clear left, clear right, and actually looking before you say clear left, clear right. But yeah, next one.
Hello, Kenny with 41 Helicopters. Next helicopter training tip: lift to a hover should be in a 2-step process. Step number 1 is get the aircraft light on the skids, pause, neutralize all movements. Then when you're ready to lift the helicopter up, step number 2 is gently lift the aircraft into the air. Now the maneuver has a few more inputs than that, but simply put, 2-step process. I've done this video before as well, and it's an important one to hit again. When I was first training, when the older instructor came along to check me out, I've been flying with the young guy. After we went out and flew, he took me in and he said, okay, now remember this, and don't ever forget it. The pickup must be a 2-step process. Experienced pilots roll these things over from doing a sloppy pickup, rushing it, not using a good 2-step process. So it really is key. Get the aircraft light on the skids, pause, neutralize, meaning adjust the pedals, adjust the cyclic, get everything set where you want it, and then when you're ready, gently lift the aircraft into the air. So you got to remember, and you need to use this for your methods on your lift to hover, 2-step process. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you on the next one.
All right, two-stage lift to a hover. We all think this is actually in the book.
I'm pretty sure it's in the book.
Yeah,
two-step process. I think it was actually
pretty certain of painfully slow up on the collective until you feel light on the skids, left pedal, and then once you are still painfully slow up on the collective and slowly lift into a hover. We're pretty sure that's just the correct way
There's
to
not
do
really,
it.
the only way I really simplify it, because sometimes, as you're lifting the collective, you're going to have to add some left pedal, but then, sometimes you add a little too much left pedal. I just tell my students, do opposite of what the aircraft's doing.
Yeah.
It says get it light on the skids and then neutralize all the movement is what the book says. Well, if the aircraft is starting to turn to the right a little bit, well, then you need a little bit more left pedal. If the aircraft is sliding to the left, then you need a little bit of more right cyclic. It just do opposite of whatever the aircraft's doing, neutralize all that movement as you're still bringing up that collective.
Yeah.
Now, I know the Robinsons don't do it, but part of the small problem of training in the Instrums is we call it the Instrum bounce. So everybody, once the Instrum gets light on the skids, it starts to really bounce on those shocks that the skids have. Well, people want to rush that, and that's part of the problem there. And then a lot of the Robinson doesn't have this either because of the governor, but as you bring that collective up and you come up off the ground, you have to be in the green. The needle's got to be in the green before you come up off the ground. So neutralize all that movement, keep the needles in the green, continue to bring that collective up, and off the ground you go. But it is a two-step process. Light on the skids, neutralize movement, come up off the ground. Bam!
Last video?
Sure, why not?
Yeah,
let's make more. Let's just keep going. Let's see if we can be here all day.
Kenny Keller, the creator of Helicopter Online Ground School and author of the Amazon bestseller, Helicopter Checkride. And what I want to talk about is pressure altitude. What is pressure altitude? Pressure altitude is what we get when we dial 29.92 in the Colesman window. Most all of us have trouble with this. Private level, commercial level, CFI. I work with add-on pilots. They come back and you ask them, what's pressure altitude? What's density altitude? Everybody gets them screwed up. So what is pressure altitude? It's what you get when you dial 29.92 in your Colesman window. A lot of people say, what is the Colesman window? Colesman window is that small window there you see on the face of the altimeter. So we have 29.92 approximately dialed in that window. So our pressure altitude's about 800 feet. So why do we care? We care because the aircraft's going to operate at the pressure altitude. We need the pressure altitude to work our performance chart. So if you remember pressure altitude, definition, it's what you get when you dial 29.92 in the Colesman window, and what you read directly from your altimeter is your pressure altitude. Please give us a like and a share and put your comments down below. And if you'd like to learn more about our Helicopter Online Ground School, there's a link either beside, below, or above this video. Click that link for an information video about our Helicopter Online Ground School. We have hundreds of members all over the world. We've been helping with people with check rides for 3.5 years, and we've had huge success with helping people get through their check ride. So click one of those links and we'll see you in the next video.
Just because it's so simple, they're making it harder. And
yeah, we're here. I just flashcarded this until I got it right. Yeah. Pressure altitude, height above the standard on a plane. Density altitude is the pressure altitude adjusted for non-standard temperature. I just flashcarded it until I could get it, and then after I pretty much had that down, then I did more research to figure out what height above the standard on a plane really meant. But especially for private, you need to know those two definitions. But really, beyond that, you kind of need a little bit description of what it is. But yeah, I think you just said it right.
Well, you nailed the definition, which I don't even know if I could just ramble off that definition. I mean, I just know pressure altitude, you dial in 29.92, there you go. And then
what your altimeter says, that's your
and then, for density altitude, that's what the aircraft thinks it's flying at. It really is that simple. Now, what I do find with students is how to, if you're not sitting there with the aircraft, how do you figure pressure altitude? That's a little challenge. Oh. But, other than that, in which that's probably for another day, but, I don't really know how to hammer it home about.
Yeah, I mean, but this is why it's like this is let's see, I just had the phone numbers of a lot of the airports that I live around, where I just call the weather, or that's when you look up the TAFs and figure out what the density altitude is of your destination. But you do need to know the difference, and there is a difference.
Yep.
Let's see.
All right.
They're set for a specific airfield. The altimeter setting is will be the pressure altitude at the airfield. It's going to change minute to minute. Maybe it's going to change. But yeah, when you call up Plymouth weather and it'll say altimeter setting might be like 29.82, and now so you would dial in 29.82 to make sure that your altimeter is reading correct. So I forget what the actual MSL.
I think Plymouth's 800.
Yeah,
799. I think.
720.
I don't know.
But basically, you use your field elevation if you don't have an altimeter setting. That's all there really is.
Yeah.
And then once you get up in the air and you get close to an airport, within 5 miles or whatever, then dial in their AWOS and see what they are calling for the altimeter setting.
Yeah, but it'll change throughout your flight, and you want to make sure that you have the right altimeter setting to make sure that you're not, when you think you're 600 feet off the ground, you're really 300 feet off the ground.
Yeah, and it's used for separation of traffic.
Traffic separation as well. So you'll want to make sure that you have, especially if ATC is telling you you're supposed to be here, and make sure you don't run into that citation that's coming straight at you. But yeah, that's.
So yeah, you would. So to answer the question, you would use the airfield altitude if you don't have an altimeter setting.
Correct.
Right. So like if Plymouth here was 800 feet and I didn't have an AWOS or available weather, I would just dial in 800 on the altimeter. And then if I flew north and got up into South Bend's airspace, I would find out what their altimeter setting is. That way I would be on the same as everybody else in the area.
All right. I'm going to go over to Courtney here in a second. Subscribe to our channel, please, on YouTube. We're going to wrap things up here. Courtney's still sitting over there. Last minute question. We'll check and see whatever we might have to answer yet. See if anything else is coming in. Helicopterground.com. Private, commercial, CFI. Our instrument course is now live and open to the public. If you're a current member, we have a discount code for you. Email me, Kenny@helicopterground.com, or Gary@helicopterground.com. We'll give you a special discount code if you're a current member. Anybody off the street can buy the instrument course. Helicopterground.com. We have a new fancy. I just rebuilt the site over the weekend, and the homepage is real simple. If you go to helicopterground.com, it's like right on the list. Commercial, private, CFI, instrument, blah, blah, blah. Very easy to navigate. So helicopterground.com. Subscribe to our channel. Like, comment. I'm going to go over to the Courtney cam, see if we got anything to finish up over there.
Well, there's no questions, but Harley said Hogs will put you away ahead of your classmates at Rucker. So.
Very nice.
Military Helicopter Primary Flight School.
Yep. All right. Well, hey, thanks everybody that tuned in. If you didn't put who you are and where you're from, do it now. If you're not a member yet, go to helicopterground.com and sign up. We have 1 day for the monthly and yearly. We have 1 day free trial. Put your credit card in, go in for 24 hours, check out our training. If it's not what you're looking for, remove your credit card before 24 hours is up. You'll never be billed. We part as friends, and then you'll be back later after you fail your check ride. And I'm just saying, we've had a couple of members in the last 6 months that they refunded, emailed me later and said, "Hey Kenny, I was that guy refunded 6 months ago. Well, last month I failed my check ride. My flight school said I didn't need your training, and so I refunded. I failed. I want ground school, and I just changed flight schools." I've had that happen twice. So I'm going to go back to these two for their any last minute thoughts. Thank these guys for being here today. This is awesome. I've loved having these two here to give another perspective on the things that I'm preaching. It's just nice to hear things explained in a different way. So I'm going to go back to you two.
I don't really have any party thoughts other than I hope the sound works.
Me too. Quote of the day, Hauser. You don't have a big quote for us?
Oh man, I didn't.
Quote of some kind.
Oh man, I should have brought me a quote. I didn't think about it. Let me see if I can think of one.
Tell a funny joke.
Quote of the day by helicopterground.com.
There you go.
Online ground school. I don't know.
All right, that works. All right, we're going to wrap it up. Thanks, everybody that's been here. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for sharing. See you next Tuesday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're here every week. Maybe next week I'll go on vacation, have Gary here running it by himself. Thanks, everybody. See you Wednesday, Gary. Talk to you later.